you prepare to the role?
How did I prepare for the role?
Physical and...
The physical stuff? Well, that was about 8 to 9 weeks worth of training. 7 weeks in Belfast before we started shooting. And every day I'd go to like the stunt hangar, with a big hangar with the stunt guys and stunt coordinator, and I'd go and learn about an hour's worth of fighting, and then go for lunch, and then go to the gym with my trainer and come back and rehearse what we did in the morning and refresh your memory, and then the next day you do a little bit more and come back and rehearse that, and then you slowly add it on. It's just like a choreography, it's like a dance, you know?
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, every day, 7 weeks,
Fighting.
training.
It's funny they cut every bit of it out of the film now. It's so weird.
And that was a frustrating thing, because I worked so hard on these fight sequences. I cut them all out. It's okay, I got it. It was too much. I was too good.
It was like,
that's what
hold
happened.
on a minute, who's the kick-ass president? We can't have two. Yeah, but no, it was full on, and it carried on throughout the whole film. We used to have I had a tent where I would relax and get changed, and next to it I had another tent with the gym in it, and so we.
But Luke developed this amazing talent for catnaps. So he was able to sleep between takes for like 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. He was like a machine. He was like a robot. He could just shut it down and then wake it up.
I had to. I just had to find time. Just 5 minutes. I just had to do it. There was no way.
Like a dog.
In fact, if you don't ask another question quickly, I might just nod off.
Japanese style.
Japanese style. What? Falling asleep?
5 minutes asleep.
Really?
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I've got to study Japanese.
You're Japanese.
You're being Japan.
Maybe.
And did you read some books about Dracula or watch movies?
Well, I didn't read. Well, I guess yeah. I didn't read the Bram Stoker novel because I didn't feel like it sort of reflected the story we were telling. It was a little late in the day. It was 400 years after our story begins. So my reference was just books on Vlad Tepes, and the period in time when he lived on Earth and the way it was. You know, it was a very turbulent time in Eastern European history. I mean, this little country that they lived in was it was tiny on a map. It's like Romania and Hungary, and this little country. And he historically, you know, he did stop the Ottoman invasion, not by becoming a vampire. That's our little flair. That's our little touch to the Hollywood story. But you know, this was historical fact. So that's what I did. I referenced his stories and his life. His life is, you know, he was reared as a child by the Turkish Mehmet I, the Sultan, and was taught all these techniques, these fighting techniques, the torture techniques, which he took back to his own country and used as punishment and torture. He was taught all of those by his enemy, you know, and then he turned them on them when they came to fight him. So I think they call it karma. No? Yeah.
I watched a lot of films. Gary's a big Spielberg fan. I think, as you can kind of tell in the film. And so I watched a lot of early Spielberg stuff. I think a lot of the banter between the men and women is kind of stuff that I know Gary really wanted us to kind of emulate in the film, and it's kind of that pacing was something that was kind of important to him. And I watched a lot of samurai movies, a lot of, you know, kind of where the Westerns were born from, and I felt like at a script level at least our film had like tonally a lot of those kind of same sensibilities. I actually gave Luke a Kurosawa box set when we were at.
You did, yeah. It's beautiful.
To
And the card's still on my shelf.
commemorate our work together.
Yes.
I think very interesting. The movie rewrites a lot the true story. With Vlad is less cruel than the reality, etc. But in the same time, many things were based on real facts, real historical facts.
Yeah, I mean, I was very clear with Gary that I didn't want us to ignore the fact that Vlad Tepes was a ruthless warrior. He was renowned and has become synonymous with the title of the Impaler, but there was a lot of other parts to his life. He did reign over a very long period of his kingdom in a peaceful land. You know, there was no invasions, and that's where you meet him and Morena and his people, they're living through a very peaceful period. And all this is historical, yeah. You know, it's cleverly done. I mean, we could have just fictionalized the whole thing, but why do that when you have a historical character and you have all this information and interesting information? And what I love about Vlad's story is that this dark character that he was, the sinister person he used to be, he's locked it away in a dungeon in a monastery. This armor that basically reflects who he was, and he shuts it away. And then at one point in the film, he's forced to bring it back out, and it's basically once he's lost his love. So it's it's interesting. Very clever.
I think that history really helped us create a real kind of place for us to start in that
I
film.
think so.
Is that you know he's come from all of this darkness, you know he's capable of all of this violence, and yet he's found this lightness with his family. He's found this kind of peaceful Garden of Eden with his wife and his child. And I think that starting from that place, but knowing that past, really gives you an interesting place to take off from with the film.
Yeah, and it's the human story, and that's what I think that's what drew me to it, and probably what drew you to it, is the fact that you're not just dealing with a vampire film. You know, it's essentially the human journey that is the interesting part, and the human emotion and the relationship, and which is the catalyst for everything that Vlad does, is because of the love he has for his wife and his child and his people. That's what causes him to do what he does. So.
But you're pretty badass when you become all that.
Pretty badass, yeah. Don't
It's really the untold story, because
Clever.
Dracula, it's the movie show part of Dracula. The other movies don't speak.
They don't touch on it. No, I think Coppola was the first person ever to put the backstory in, but like 3-4 minutes or whatever it was. You know, it's a tiny part of the story, but people like a good prequel. People like to know. Often the backstory is more interesting than the present story. You know, it's about how does that person turn into that creature? Why is he so evil? Was he born evil? Does he become evil? What's the answers? You know, and we set out to answer those questions.
Sarah, you used to play in more independent movies with less spectacle. I guess Dracula Untold should be an interesting experience as an actress. Could you tell us about this?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly the first kind of major studio film that I was able to be a part of, and it was definitely fulfilled all my childhood fantasies of what working on a Hollywood film would be. I mean, walking onto some of our sets was pretty breathtaking and incredible. But really, at the time, I was, searching and I on the film.
Yeah, and it's the human story, and that's what I think that's what drew me to it, and probably what drew you to it, is the fact that you're not just dealing with a vampire film. You know, it's essentially the human journey that is the interesting part, and the human emotion and the relationship, and which is the catalyst for everything that Vlad does, is because of the love he has for his wife and his child and his people. That's what causes him to do what he does. So.
But you're pretty badass when you become all that.
Pretty badass, yeah. Don't.
It's really the untold story, because
Clever.
Dracula, it's the movie show part of Dracula. The other movies don't speak.
They don't touch on it. No, I think Coppola was the first person ever to put the backstory in, but like 3-4 minutes or whatever it was. You know, it's a tiny part of the story, but people like a good prequel. People like to know. Often the backstory is more interesting than the present story. You know, it's about how does that person turn into that creature? Why is he so evil? Was he born evil? Does he become evil? What's the answers? You know, and we set out to answer those questions.
Sarah, you used to play in more independent movies with less spectacle. I guess Dracula Untold should be an interesting experience as an actress. Could you tell us about this?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly the first kind of major studio film that I was able to be a part of, and it was definitely fulfilled all my childhood fantasies of what working on a Hollywood film would be. I mean, walking onto some of our sets was pretty breathtaking and incredible. But really, at the time, I was, searching and I was wanting to tell a romantic story. And I think that's what Gary, when we first sat down and talked about the film, he really expressed to me, is that although this is this epic action adventure film, at the heart of it is this very classic romance. And so I kind of thought, okay, normally those kind of romances are a little sidebar story. So when I was able to test with Luke for the part, I was really, it feels weird saying this when you're right beside me, but I was really kind of impressed because, the character of Vlad is so dark and imposing and violent, but Luke is able, I think, to play the romantic side of this movie with a vulnerability and I think a sensitivity. And so I knew in our screen test that we would be able to really create something real.
We want the audience to be on our side. We need them to believe in this relationship, this core fundamental connection that these two people have. Like Morena backs Vlad up the whole way through, even when she finds out that he's drunk the blood of this, and he's now has this terrible thirst, but he's addicted, he's got an addiction. She stands by him and protects him and supports him and understands, whether it's clear or not, but she understands somehow why he's done what he's done. So it was definitely our main objective, was to get the audience on our side and believe this relationship and the passion and the love and the trust that they have for each other. Otherwise, the whole thing's just one big action movie.
And I think that filmmaking is there's a spectrum of filmmaking. You can really make films a number of different ways, and I feel really lucky that I've had so many experiences working with so many different directors in different countries, on co-production, on independent films, and now in this way. It's been a really great experience for me, and I learned a lot. Yeah.
We both did.
Yeah.
But I read in an interview you told you was scared during the shooting.
I was scared, yeah. I don't know, was I scared? I think there were times where I was certainly challenged. I mean, as much as there is CGI in the film and special effects, we shot on real locations. We were running through the forest in the middle of the night. It was the middle of the forest in the middle of the night, and it was raining, and there was mud, and I was tripping over my costume, and it was, there was a high intensity to a lot of the shooting, and so it was really physically and emotionally exhausting. And at the end of the day, at the end of some days, we were just...
You were covered in bruises.
Just wrecked.
Like covered.
Just
I've never seen
wrecked.
anybody... I mean...
I was like a banana.
Yeah.
Brutal at the end of the
That
day.
have been thrown around the room for a few days.
Yeah. And Luke is pretty scary. I mean, there are some really scary scenes in the movie. There were scenes, especially the scene in the smithy, with the flames and everything. It was really...
Yeah, that was full on, yeah.
It felt very real.
Yeah.
Look, for you, it's a new incursion in the genre movie after No One Lives.
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
Excuse me.
It's okay.
It's a new genre movie for you.
Yes.
After the excellent No One Lives.
All right. Yeah.
Do you like that kind of movie, horror movie, fantastic movie?
Actually, no. I don't like horror movies really. My imagination is too vivid, and I find it very hard to switch off after I've watched a horror film. So
I know, I feel the same.
I can't watch them. And No One Lives. Just quickly, No One Lives was, for me, it was just sort of a fun experiment to see if it was scary to shoot. It's not. Is it scary?
You are scary.
Well, I might be scary, but listen, it was like shooting a comedy film. For me, it was the funniest thing I've ever done in my life. It was funny. It was hilarious. It's popcorn horror, you know what I mean? It was just like, oh, let's just pour a bit more blood on me. Let's put me inside a body and let's throw this man's head into a fan. I mean, it was just a joke. It was funny, but it was, it was directed by a very famous Japanese horror director, and it did have a fun edge to it. But I'm glad it scared you. That's job done. Let's move on.
Fun to watch.
Exactly.
And for both of you, what is your favorite scene from the movie?
Oh God, it's hard. I mean, I've probably mentioned about 4 or 5 favorite scenes I have today. The one I mentioned just now was the Charles dance scene. For me, was he was only in for 4 days, I think, 4 or 5 days on the whole shoot, and it was a really powerful experience to. Well, one is he's terrifying. I mean, he's statuesque. He's a very tall man. He has this incredible resonating sound that he makes, and covered in this prosthetic and his teeth, and he has this fantastic. The monologues he has are beautiful, and he delivered them with such sort of sinister, desperate. What he did was brilliant, and for me to act against him and react to what he was giving me was just a total gift. So yeah, that's one of my special moments. One of them.